If you want to start jiu-jitsu in 2026, this is what you need to know before you get started. Unfortunately, way too many people start jiu-jitsu and end up wrecking their bodies and getting injured because they don't know what to expect when they first walk on the mat. In this podcast, I'm interviewing Andrew Zaragoza. He's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner, podcast producer, and entrepreneur, and he's learned from some of the best grapplers in the industry, such as Giancarlo Bodoni, Nicky Rod, Gracie, and Meregali. And from his experience on the mat over the years, we're breaking down some of the best tips that you can implement if you're going to start training jiu-jitsu in 2026. Andrew, my man, welcome to the podcast.
My man, dude, thank you so much, dude, for this opportunity and our friendship and all that good stuff. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm freaking geeked to be talking with you. I mean, we talk probably for at least an hour every single day, but it's never on wax. So I'm glad that we actually get to get this conversation on wax. I definitely want to dive into your jiu-jitsu origin story, but before we go way back to the beginning, I kind of want to start and kind of circle back to a conversation we had. I think this was at CJI 2. You and I were talking about how jiu-jitsu makes fat loss and getting shredded stupid easy. Like, we've both done typical bodybuilding style diets, tons and tons of cardio. But then once we started jiu-jitsu, we're like, this is like a cheat code for getting shredded. So can you share some of your experience on getting shredded using jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, absolutely. So not only did I get into the jiu-jitsu game late, I got into like lifting late. So like I would kind of hate on people that would have their like before and after like transformation photos and stuff. Like this was like, before Reels, right? This was when Instagram was just photos. And I would look at them and be like, okay, yeah, dude, you were 12. Like, of course you don't have muscle. And then you post a picture of you at like 25. Like I get it, right? Like you're going to develop some muscle. You didn't even hit puberty yet. For me, I started lifting at 27 years old. I am roughly 6 feet tall. I always say 5'11", because if I ever get checked and I'm not officially 6 feet tall, I don't want to be called a liar. So we'll just say I'm 5'11". 160 pounds is what my starting weight when I got into the gym, and body fat percentage was probably around like 25. So it wasn't that I was just skinny. I was like fat too, which is strange. But anyway, so I got into the gym to have abs, to get ripped, to get shredded. It wasn't necessarily to like be like Jay Cutler, huge bodybuilder, although like that would get me fired up. It was mainly just because I'm like, dude, I don't want to be fat anymore, but I want to have some muscle. So after like running my head into a brick wall for, I don't know, like almost 10 years, I did eventually, finally get to see abs for the first time, but I would be like real stringy and just like, I don't know, it wasn't like I'm getting ready to step on stage. Although I was proud of what I did, but it just wasn't quite, it was always a struggle. I remember the first time that I saw my abs, I remember I went on this like 3-month cut. I filmed it for like Instagram, and like I basically did like 16/8 fasting or more every single day for like 3 months. Although like that's not that crazy of a feat, but it's the fact that I was still in the caloric deficit that whole time. I would have like one meal a day, just starving myself, doing Stairmaster. I remember I'd leave the gym with like steam coming off my head.
Oh, that sounds miserable.
It is, but at the same time, I feel like I really needed that to get like my iron cred, like I had to suffer through it and, carry the boats and all that BS.
Right, right.
Anyway, it was really hard. It took a long time, and it was just not fun. It just literally was not fun. Fast forward, and we can get into all this, but when I got into jiu-jitsu, now all of a sudden, okay, hey, like we can't go to Chipotle tonight because I don't want to be the guy that's gassy on the mat tomorrow morning. So like, if you guys want to go ahead. Like I'll probably have some meat and rice or some chicken and rice or whatever. And then that's all I'm going to have. Right. Because I started thinking like, how am I going to perform tomorrow if I eat like crap today? On top of that, dude, if I stay up late watching, Stranger Things or whatever, like I'm going to wake up feeling terrible and perform really, really bad on the mat. So everything turned from eating and like living for the aesthetic to eating and living for the performance. Then once you get into jiu-jitsu and you start like I mean, everybody in here that has gone through at least one class, you'll know like by the end of it, like, dude, my gi, I train in the gi, by the way, my gi is like 10 pounds heavier because it is completely soaked. There is no other form of cardio where you can just blank out and all of a sudden be like, oh my gosh, dude, what did I do? Like, I look like I just jumped out of a pool, but that's all sweat. Mostly my sweats, some of my partners, but like for the most part, it's mine. And so you could really like click your brain off, get tons of work in, burn tons of calories, all the things, all while your nutrition, your sleep, your hydration, everything is on point without you really having to think about it. Because if it's not, then you're going to perform bad. But if you can perform okay-ish, and when I say perform, I don't mean like tap other people. I just mean like don't throw up, don't give up, and like start and finish the class, with everyone else. Then you're going to get shredded because there's really no other option, because your body's like, all right, we got to perform. Like it's not, let's get these, steps on this Stairmaster. It's like, hey, next round, go. Or next technique session, go. And now we're going to practice that, go. It really does take the I guess I'll say discipline, even though there's obviously tons of discipline going into it. But it's not like, all right, I got to get in the car, got to slide my card in the little card, the door card reader. I got to go set my stuff up for the Stairmaster or the treadmill. Got to find something on Netflix to watch to check my brain out. Like, no, it's just like, yo, let's go train today. This is going to be sick. And then by the end of it, like, dude, I've gone in and like lost like 10 pounds like that day just by having fun. And so doing that over, at least a year, like, I have got the physique that I have been chasing for the last decade without even trying. And that was such a huge eye-opening moment, because I'm like, yes, I'm doing cardio, but like, I'm not doing cardio. I'm training jiu-jitsu and I'm having fun while learning a really good skill and making some cool friends. Easiest way to get shredded is definitely by training jiu-jitsu.
That is amazing. And I'm glad you gave the context of Zaragoza back in the day, because I remember you going through that and the photo shoot that happened at the very end, and you looked incredible. And I think that was right. I think that photo shoot happened probably 4 months or 5 months before I left Slingshot and just started pursuing my own business. And I remember probably a year and a half later, you'd been training a ton of jiu-jitsu. I think you competed once or twice. I came back and I saw you and I was like, dang, he looks like more jacked and more shredded than he did in the photo shoot, where he like locked in everything 100% for that photo shoot. And I was thinking, like, I'm so glad that there's someone else that is seeing this happen in real time. Because I think a lot of times people will, they'll get into jiu-jitsu as a form of fitness, but that's kind of a short-sighted goal, where jiu-jitsu can't be your only form of fitness. I think people should, and I would love to continue this more for the rest of the podcast as a theme of our conversation, tips for people who are just starting jiu-jitsu in 2026. But I think it's important for people to look at jiu-jitsu not as a way to get in shape, but as an outlet for performance. And so if you do this thing as an outlet for performance, getting in shape is just kind of a byproduct of that, versus explaining it just like you said, getting your phone out, trying to find something to watch on Netflix while you do 45 minutes of the Stairmaster. That is a form of fitness, which is great, not really an outlet for performance. And so I've, completely resonate with what you're saying. I think jiu-jitsu is like a fat loss cheat code if you're doing all the other stuff correctly. You mentioned a little bit kind of about your origin story, so I'd love for you to share more of that. When I first met you, I was already doing jiu-jitsu for about a year, a little bit over a year. And Sima Yang was also at Power Project and Super Training Gym at the time. That's kind of how I got connected in there. I started talking to you, and you had basically you were surrounded by other people that were doing jiu-jitsu for a long period of time, but it took a few years before you actually dove all in. So can you share some of like what your thought process was, maybe some of the hesitancy that you had to starting jiu-jitsu, and then what flipped the switch for you to actually like, all right, I'm gonna put these goofy pajamas on and I'm gonna go roll around at 6 a.m. with a bunch of mutants at Waza. Like, what was that transition like for you?
Yeah, that I couldn't hide from the cult anymore. Like it was literally just it was just coming at me like from all angles, right? Like I literally couldn't hide anymore. And Sema had been a huge proponent of it. You know, once he started doing the podcast, we were hanging out every day, and he was just always talking about it. Like, dude, you got to get into it. You know, you're gonna love it. And I'm like, I was like, man, I don't know. So we'll go back a little bit, but like, you know, I wear glasses, and so like anytime someone's in my face, I would always like cowered away. Like I didn't like confrontation. Like I didn't like people in my bubble. And the thought of like having some dude on top of me suffocating me or choking me or just causing harm, I was like, dude, that's just not for me, man. Like I've never been into it. Like I've never you know, like I don't have many siblings my age or cousins my age, and then my brother and sister are much older than me, so like we never like roughhoused or anything like that. Like, and then if my cousins did, they were all bigger than me, and like I didn't like it. Like it never, just always hated it. And then so again, the thought was like, yeah, I don't want to go do that thing. And if somebody is on the fence, and maybe you think the way I used to think, but this is real, dude. I used to think that jiu-jitsu schools were like the original Cobra Kai back in the day, meaning you go in there and you're just going to get beat up until you get thrown out. And if you survive, then cool. Then you're going to be the guy that beats up the new guy. Like I thought it was a legit fight club where people just wanted to go and like, oh, here's the new guy that doesn't know what he's doing. Let's rough him up and let's make his life difficult, right? Like hazing basically, which some people, I guess you can say that they will try that, but for the most part, everyone's going to have your back. So that's not the actual case. But yeah, so it was always around. It was always being talked about, especially on the podcast. And that's really like, again, like I now no longer believe in coincidences, but it just kept coming up over and over and over where like Mark was talking to his son about it. And then like we'd have guests talking about it, or we would have just like legit like jiu-jitsu like champions on the podcast. And then again with Nsima there talking about it. And so two really, really big things happened that were like kind of like the last two straws. I'll talk about Bedros first. So Bedros Keuilian, just amazing, huge, I guess we would call him like business coach or mindset coach. Just, I don't know, professional rich guy, we'll just say for right now. Big time motivator. He came on the show and he was explaining how on a flight back from Hawaii, some dude was just like on drugs and going crazy, telling like the stewardess that he's going to kill everyone on the plane and like get away from him, all these things. And so Bedros is just sitting there like, dude, I got my whole family on this plane, and this dude said he's going to kill everybody. So he leans over and he, you know, talks to the, I forgot what they're called, but I'm just going to use stewardess. I think that's incorrect these days. But he's like, hey, like, what's going on? And, you know, he's freaking out. Like, do you need help? And she's like, yes, because we're not allowed to like handcuff him. All we can do is give him these zip ties and ask him to zip tie himself because regulations and all these weird, stupid laws. And so he's like, oh my gosh. So he gets up, he starts walking towards the guy. The guy recognizes that he's walking towards him, so he charges after Bedros. Bedros had just got done training only 2 weeks of what he called MMA training, but in that training, he did a little bit of groundwork and some jiu-jitsu. With that little bit of work, he was able to submit this guy, get him on the ground. You know, I don't know. He didn't explain his takedown technique. I would assume he went for a single leg. No, just kidding. Whatever the case, he got the guy to the ground and got control of him. And then he was able to put the zip ties on him. He's a freaking hero. His family is like, oh my gosh, that was so cool. So I started thinking about that, like, dang, that's crazy. Like, what would I do in that situation? I don't have any skills to protect my family. And I'm not saying that, oh, you're a blue belt, calm down. Like, no, but at least I have something now. And then so the final straw was my son being born. I want him to know that like, hey, this is normal. It's normal that we train jiu-jitsu. It's normal that we exercise. It's normal that we don't eat dessert after every meal. It's normal that we eat healthy. And so those two things were really like the last two straws that were like, okay, I need to get into this because I want my son to do it. But if he does it, like I want him to know that like dad did it first. And this is just what we do. And so that's kind of what it came down to for me finally stepping up. And, you know, I hit up my buddy, Charlie Zamora. I'm like, hey, dude, like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, where do I go? And thankfully at that time, he actually just started a program at his gym where it was kind of like they called it like old man jiu-jitsu 101. So it was like for brand new people, but like in master's division. And so I went there and that's where I got started. And after only like 2 or 3 times going there, I went and signed up at Waza Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu here in Elk Grove, and I've been going there since.
That's amazing. I freaking love that. What year did you start?
So, oh man, you're gonna. I think it would have been the very end of 22, right? No, 23. I'm just a little bit over 3 years deep, so yeah, it would have been at the end of 23.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
awesome. So I'm definitely a little bit more familiar with your white belt journey, but I think you have probably the most unique collection of white belt stories that I've ever heard, specifically just through the nature of what you do as a profession and the different connections that you have. But as a white belt, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think within a year you learned in person from Nicky Rod, Nicholas Meregali, Giancarlo Bodoni, Haja Gracie, Mason Fowler, and am I missing anyone else? Victor Hugo, or I can't remember who else.
I was able to podcast with Victor Hugo and pick his brain, but yeah, I as crazy as this sounds, yeah, I think that's it. Like the most insane white belt journey, and on top of that, putting together 2 seminars with another white belt for Giancarlo and for Nicky Rod. Like it doesn't make any sense, but that's the power of podcasting. Like you make these insane connections that like put you in the right place at the right time, so long as you're willing to take action on it. But yeah, dude, none of it makes sense. It does not make sense. It's almost like one of those things where like somebody wins the lottery and they don't deserve, like, you know what I mean? Like they blow all their money and like, that's it. Thankfully, I think I was responsible with the gifts I was given. But yeah, dude, the only one out of those that was just like a seminar that I went in, like I went to, was Haja Gracie. But again, because of the connections, people were like, hey, are you going to this? I'm like, I didn't even know this existed. Like, heck yeah, I'm going. And that was huge, dude. I learned a lot at that seminar. But yeah, the craziest white belt journey, I trained at New Wave when I wasn't supposed to because I was still a white belt. But thankfully, Jimmy House, he told Meregali, he was just like, nah, bro, it's okay. Like, I'll train with him over here. Like, I promise nothing's going to happen to me or him. And he kind of was like, oh, and he just kind of like, all right, I'm just going to ignore you. So if you guys get in trouble, that's on you. And so I was like, all right, that's all good. But yeah, trained at, the Gracie school that Meregali coaches at.
Henzo Gracie Austin.
Enzo Gracie's in Austin, Texas. Mark, the owner, is such a cool, nice guy. If you're in that area, oh my gosh, you have to go. Like you have to go. There's no excuses to every person in there. Like that was when I realized that obviously like there's levels. We all know this, but there's levels inside those levels. All my like cheap, scissor sweeps that work on other white belts didn't work on those white belts. Those white belts saw that coming a mile away. So it was dude, yeah, again, crazy white belt journey for sure.
What would you say are some of the biggest like lessons you learned as a white belt from some of those top level guys? I think sometimes a lot of white belts are a little bit overwhelmed sometimes just by all the information that they get when they first start jiu-jitsu. Like they're not familiar with where to put their hands, and then some upper belt says like, here are 10 different ways on where you can put
Yeah.
your hands. They're like, well, how about just start with one, right? And so for you as a white belt, you're learning from literally the best guys in the world that are multiple time ADCC medalists, multiple time world champs. Was there one or two lessons that you learned from any of those guys that really stuck with you and kind of really positively impacted your white belt stage at that time?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll try to remember as many as I can, but like the one that jumps out right out the top with Hodger, his thing is like jiu-jitsu simple. Like if you want to do an arm lock, it bends this way, and or it goes back this way. I'm not sure if that's on camera, or it bends this way. Simple. And so like after he taught like a really, really dope seminar, he taught, I don't even know what it would be called, a sick ass move that I ended up doing the following week. So that's how good he coached it as a white belt. I was able to replicate it on like a live roll. Best day ever. But at the end, we had like a Q&A session with him. Everyone's asking all these dope questions about just the most complex jiu-jitsu things. And like, I'm so nervous, but I'm like, hey man, like for the white belts in the room, because like I couldn't even like take ownership of it, but I was like, I keep getting stuck in side control, like, and I can't get out of it no matter what. I'm trying to shrimp out, I'm trying to frame, nothing works. What am I doing wrong? And he just basically, again, calmly said, he's like, well, what I see white belts doing, in other terms, for sure, he did not say this, but this is how I interpreted it. But he's like, all they're doing is they're spamming shrimps, they're spamming frames, and they're spamming, trying to explode out. And the person on top is just holding them. Like they don't have to do anything and wait for you to get tired and then submit you. Instead, you got to wait for those windows. And when he said that, I was like, okay, like I don't really understand what he's talking about, but let me just try to be patient. Let me catch my breath. Use this as an opportunity to just like assess the situation instead of just spazzing out and trying to like escape. And sure enough, it's like, oh, he's probably going to go for something. When he goes for that thing, maybe that's my window. And sure enough, I was able to get out of side control a couple times, like I'm still not great at it, but it was one of those things where like, it just didn't make sense. And in that moment, it just absolutely, clicked pretty dang fast. Let me think. I remember talking to Mason about like competing and like the nerves with that, and like when does it make sense, like all these things. And he's like, dude, I didn't really feel comfortable competing against anybody till like midway through purple belt. He's like, because before that, everyone's still so spazzy, everyone's so nervous. Like wins and losses don't even freaking matter. Like, don't even worry about that. And so I was like, damn, okay. So until I become a purple belt, I'm probably going to freak out anyways. So I might as well try to calm down right now, right? Why am I going to get so worked up over a white belt tournament? That helped a lot. Nicky Rod, Nicky's just a freaking savage. That guy's an animal. One thing that was really, really huge, and this actually came from Cassio Wernick, right? Your professor, technically my professor as well. We're all of our professors. But on a podcast, he basically said, don't fight back. And it was so confusing, especially at that time. But I was picking his brain about like, do I got to get in better shape? Do I got to get stronger? Do I got to get faster? Do I got to work on my cardio? Like, what is it? And he basically said, you're already strong enough. Your cardio is fine. You're in great shape. You don't have to get better at that. Don't fight back. And I was just like, well, what do you mean? But what he was getting at was like, you at white belt, what are you really going to do to an upper belt? Are you going to seriously surprise the heck out of them, sweep them, submit them? Or I think what he was really getting at was like, are you really going to get out of a submission? Like, are you actually going to figure out how to defend yourself all of a sudden when this brown belt's been doing it for a decade? It's like, no. It's like, don't be that guy. Don't fight back, meaning learn. If you're stuck in something, okay, hey, I know I'm about to tap, but what can I do in this situation? Or how do I not get in this situation again? And in most cases, sometimes it's like, oh, we're already way too late, so don't even bother. But when he said that, it calmed me down. So maybe the theme of all this is just like, hey, calm down. But what that did was it made me a really good training partner. And I, I started recognizing like, wait, dude, these upper belts keep calling me out. Not calling me out as in to challenge me, but like they'd look in the room and if it was me and 10 other white belts, they would want to train with me. And one of my buddies at the time, he was a brown belt. He's like, this is why we like training with you. Cause I was like, dude, I'm sorry, I'm getting my ass kicked. You know, he's like, no, you don't understand. This is why we like training with you. Cause you move the right way and you don't make things worse. You learn and then you adapt. And if you keep running into the same thing, like, yes, we're going to give you the hot stove method and just keep crushing you. But in most cases, when other people are in the same situation, they spaz out, and then we have to like really teach them a lesson, which we don't want to do because then that pushes people away or creates like that weird like tension. He's like, with you, you seem to learn and then you get back up and then you try to learn more. And again, it's all because I'm like, okay, like I'm not going to catch this dude in an arm bar. So I'm not going to like try to set up a flying arm bar or something stupid, right? It was like, okay, what techniques can I actually improve upon right now? As opposed to how am I going to submit this dude? Like, cause that's just not going to work, you know? So that was actually one of the bigger ones was from Casio for sure.
I love that. Completely forgot about that advice that he shared on the podcast a few years ago. And I think that really goes a lot in line with the idea that I've also heard Hodger Gracie talk about with a big mistake that a lot of people make is training to win as opposed to training to get better. And if all your, and I just recorded the last podcast episode about this, is that training to win is pretty short-sighted in the sense that it kind of narrows your focus to only working on the things that you're best at and not really opening yourself up to learning anything new. And then on top of that, if the outcome of a good training session is all based in winning and losing, like if you're training anywhere good, you're going to lose quite a bit, which means that a lot of training sessions are going to suck for you. And I like what you shared about what Casio said about not fighting back. Because if a white belt is going into jiu-jitsu, if someone's listening to this, they're like, okay, like I've, watched however many reels on Instagram about guys getting fired up about jiu-jitsu. I think I'm going to try it. And if they go in with the expectation that, okay, I'm going to go in, I'm going to learn something new, and I'm going to try to win versus I'm just going to focus on learning. And when I get stuck in something, I'm not going to fight back and just keep focusing on what I can learn. I think that kind of plays more towards the long game and enjoying the process a lot more than opposed to just focusing on winning and losing in all of these exchanges.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that actually, it does remind me of something else from Giancarlo. So he had, I don't remember if it was on air or off air, but I just remember somebody had asked him, like, do you get tapped in, like in practice or in training all the time or at all? And he's just like, dude, all the time. He's like, to lower belts, like white, like he's like, again, it's kind of the same thing where like, I'm not there to win, I'm there to train. And I thought that was huge too. That like, I already don't have a big ego, but it will creep in from time to time. But when you hear that, you're just like, dude, like, this is Giancarlo, like ADCC champ. Like, okay, I think I could take a little bit of a lesson from him. And then the other thing, which we'll probably hit on later, was like the confidence that he just exuded. I think that's how you would say that word. I won't say who, but somebody had asked him, like, hey, could you take that athlete? And he just was like, yeah, easily. Meanwhile, that person was like a giant compared to him, just not at the same level. And he's just like, without a doubt. And it was just like, dang, like, that's cool. Like, that's really freaking cool. I like that. I thought that was
That's
awesome.
sick. That's freaking awesome. I think kind of moving on, I think a big thing that a lot of people may not recognize when they first start jiu-jitsu is the challenge of the not having the work capacity to handle doing jiu-jitsu and handle lifting. I think a lot of times people think that they're in shape based off of these other things like, oh, I do triathlons, or, oh, I go to the gym, like I lift, like I'm strong. And they are not training in a way right from the jump that matches well with their jiu-jitsu training. So for you, you kind of already had like several years kind of going into this fitness journey, but then you kind of hit this point where you start jiu-jitsu and you realize like, oh geez, like it's actually pretty tough to balance lifting heavy and rolling hard in the same week. So how did you go about building the work capacity to handle doing jiu-jitsu and training in the gym multiple times per week?
Yeah. And look, dude, full transparency, to this day, I'm still trying to figure that out. But in my experience and my journey, I did it incorrectly. What I did was, when I first started jiu-jitsu, I was lifting 6 days a week. It was like a 3-day split, day off, 3-day split, just forever. And when I started jiu-jitsu, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do the same thing, but instead of basically like 2 sets of 3 per week, that extra set is going to be for jiu-jitsu. So I'm going to do jiu-jitsu Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then I'm going to do lifting Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. And with the exception of the very, very beginning, I was able to do that for like the first almost year. But man, I really, really worked myself into the ground. And I mean, like, I would get sick constantly. Like, I don't think we truly understand what like staph infection actually is and where it comes from, because if you ask every grappler, there's like, oh, that's just from the nasty ass mats, or somebody had it and they gave it to me. But then you go to the doctor and the doctor's like, it actually doesn't come from jiu-jitsu. It comes from wherever the heck they say it comes from. It starts in your nose and then like all this other stuff. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I have a whole lifetime resume of not getting staph until I started training jiu-jitsu. I think there's a correlation there and a causation, or whatever, how that saying goes. But yeah, dude, in the very, very beginning, like, I had mat burn on my feet that was so bad I couldn't walk.
Oh,
It
man.
was so bad. I looked like a freaking zombie. I'm not even kidding. Like, my feet were swollen. They had like pus coming out. It was the grossest thing you could ever imagine. Imagine the grossest thing and then do it like 10 more steps above that. Like, that's how bad it was. On top of that, my knees were so jacked up, not from like compressing and, cause like I was used to squatting, did a lot of knees over toes stuff. Like, I could, do a 10-minute squat at that time really easily, but the actual like impact, because I didn't know how to be like, how to be smooth with the movement. So like, instead of flowing, it was just a lot of like start, stop, and boom, 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 like hard hitting. My toes hurt, my fingers hurt from grabbing the gi too hard, like all these things that a lot of people forget hurt in the very beginning because they're already years deep, where they just forgot about that whole, period of time in their jiu-jitsu journey. Dude, it was hard. It was hard, but I kind of just said, like, we're used to it. Let's just keep doing it. And like I said, I overdid it, is what I'll say. Is I definitely overdid it, thinking that like you just said, like, my athletic prowess at the time was good enough. Some things were good enough. Like, I remember my buddy Chris was like, yeah, the first day you came in, I was like, dude, this guy's hella strong, or he's got super strong legs. Like, holy shit, this guy's going to be a problem. And so like, that feels really good. But at the same time, like, I had like not enough of a gas tank for it. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. Because the other thing is, as a white belt, it's sort of like, if you did today a 25 pound curl, it would almost feel like nothing. But if you did that when you were like a 5-year-old, that's like literally everything. That's the
Right.
equivalent of being a white belt versus, a purple or brown belt. Like, the amount of energy you need to just get through one session is insanely higher than what it is for somebody else. So I didn't know how to regulate the output. So over time, things did started to get a little bit better. But like I said, I kept getting sick over and over and over. And I'm like, dude, I'm trying to get better at this. So what I had to do was I had to hit that wall, and I had to hit it pretty hard. When I was getting ready for my first competition, every extra day that I put in training, I got hurt. So like, I hired a wrestling coach to help me with takedowns, jacked up my back really bad. Like, I couldn't move again, which we'll get into in a second, but like, I just was doing too much. So for the new white belt, or the soon to be white belt, my advice is, you are going to say that you are taking it slow. Take it slower. I was doing 3 days a week, sometimes 4, plus 3 days a week of lifting, thinking that I was going slow because I wasn't doing 5 days a week of jiu-jitsu. It's just simply too much. It is too much, and it did run me into the ground, and something that I wish I could go back and slow down even further. I've never chased belts. Again, I'm only a blue belt, and I don't care that people that got their blue belt with me are already getting promoted to purple. That doesn't really bother me. The thing that bothers me is that I'm just not currently like in a constant flow of training because I've kind of beat myself up. I'm 40 years old. Should I be competing? I don't know. I think it's cool. But at the same time, I don't know if that was the smartest thing to be doing, considering how much of a setback I received from it. So again, I don't have the perfect answer for like, do X, Y, Z so that way you can do A, B, C. All I can say is this is how I did it, and I wouldn't recommend it because I kind of beat the heck out of my body, and I wish I slowed things down, right? To now, okay, let's really like assess and understand what's really going to move the needle for Andrew. Right now, business is taking off, so I need to spend a lot of my like mind power on that. Whereas before, when I didn't have my own business, it was like, just put it all into jiu-jitsu. We'll be fine. Let's just focus on that. I don't care about the rest of my day. So if you run your own company, like you might have to balance that out yourself. But if you have a job that you're comfortable with, that you can do with your eyes closed, then sure, put a lot more into jiu-jitsu. And I'm kind of, jealous of you. But at the same time, for me right now, the thing that's going to move the needle is probably getting healthier or getting healthy again, being able to move a little bit better, and then training. So it's like I'm kind of flipping it on its head this year, as opposed to 2 years ago when it was just like, I forgot the saying, but like everyday pohada or whatever.
Yeah. Everyday pohada, boy.
As a freaking white belt, 38-year-old white belt, like give me a break. So that's what I would say, man, is like, again, I wish I had a super smooth answer, but the reality is I would say just don't do it how I do it, because I thought I was taking it nice and slow, but I was about to be 40 years old and I was just going way too often because my friends at the time were 40 years old, were 44 years old, but they had been doing it for a long time. So they can regulate how much output they had into each session. Whereas me, I'm just like full throttle all the way. Let's see what happens. And I got wrecked.
Thank you for sharing that, man. And I'm sorry to hear that there were some difficult points in your experience with that, but I think you're really kind of pulling back the curtain on the reality of, if you have zero combat sport experience and you step into combat sports, just because it's another thing that you do that doesn't look like 3 sets of 10 in the gym, that doesn't mean it's not free. It still costs something physically, costs something from an energy system perspective. And both of us are very close with Mark Bell, and we're kind of there a little bit at the beginning of when he kind of started his transition from powerlifting into running. And one thing that I believe he has said to both of us on several occasions was like, hey, if you're going to start running, we all know what a run looks like. We all know what walking looks like, and we all know what a jog looks like. Like if you're driving down the street and you see someone, that person's running, that person's jogging, or that person's walking. And it has nothing to do with how fast they are moving. And so one thing he had said to me, and I'm pretty sure he shared this with you, was like, hey, if you're just starting to run, just jog as slow as possible. And whatever you think that is, cut it in half and jog even slower. And so I think you bring up a great similar point of like, hey, however slow you think you're getting into jiu-jitsu, like cut that in half and do that. And I think that's fantastic advice for anyone who would be getting into jiu-jitsu in 2026. You did mention your back pain. And if I remember correctly, when we were working together, your back pain was like a pretty big hindrance for a lot of different things that you were trying to do on the fitness end. And then you started jiu-jitsu, which seems like counterintuitive if like you're someone who has back pain. But then within like 6 months, I talked to you and you're like, yeah, my back feels pretty freaking good given the fact that I'm doing jiu-jitsu multiple days per week. So can you break down like what was going on with your back before, and how do you think jiu-jitsu kind of helped alleviate some of that chronic back pain?
Yeah, definitely. So to put it as simple as possible, I sat down for 20 years and I never stood up. Back pain. Um, I had a job as a essentially like a glorified delivery driver where I was in a van doing deliveries, driving 6 to 8 hours every single day for like I don't know like a long time, like 10 years. And then I had another job where or maybe not 10 years, but anyway, so a long time. And then I had another job where I sat down at a desk just typing all day in the medical field for 10 years. And that's all I did. And then transformed that into a career in photography where I was standing up for a little bit. But then, as you get into video and podcasting, you're sitting down for hours and hours a day. On top of that, I didn't train the best way. I remember I would just get like a template off the internet that was like, all right, you're going to do deadlifts, back extensions, RDLs, like back to back to back exercises. And I would just thrash my back all the time. Like it would go from bad to worse. And so, yeah, I dealt with, they say that we can pinpoint when our back pain starts, but that's really just like an excuse or something that we kind of just mentally put in as a start, because it doesn't necessarily mean that it started from there. Mine was a car accident when I think I was only like 19. We got rear-ended. It was pretty bad. I was in the back seat of my friend's like pretty crappy Jeep, but it didn't have headrests.
Oh,
And we were at a complete stop. This drunk driver was coming, who knows how fast, but like basically his bumper was like right in like the back of it was like right there. So we got rocked, and I got it the worst because like I had no headrest and it launched my head back. And I remember just being like, dude, like I don't feel good. Like my back is kind of funky. At the time, I didn't know anything about anything. So like, oh, you got to go to the chiropractor. I'm like, every time I go to the chiropractor, it gets significantly worse and I can't move. So I don't like this. Again, I wasn't active, so I just didn't move and it got worse. So that's kind of where it started, right? So then fast forward into my late 20s and 30s, it just became my identity. Like I literally, my back pain dictated my entire life. There were days when I'd have to have my wife now, but girlfriend back then, like, hey, can you help me with my socks and shoes today? Like it's a bad day. And then, you start working I started working at super training where I'm surrounded by a bunch of monsters. Everybody lifts. You're weird if you don't lift. So then I got into powerlifting, which was not the best move, but at least it got me moving again. It didn't help the back at all. Barbells hurt me really, really bad. Thankfully, met Doug Brignoli and I started training with cables, which I still train to this day. But my back dictated everything I did. Literally everything. And I, with my son being born, I'm like, dude, I have to figure this out. So, started training with the guys from Goda. So like a movement practice, they focus on posture and that sort of thing. And it definitely helped. Did it reverse anything, or it just helped me deal with it a lot better? I worked with Stuart McGill, back mechanic. Did not work for me at all. And when I say did not work for me at all, it's because we didn't click. Because for him, he was like, you can't lift weights, you can't do anything until your back pain's gone. I'm like, well, what's the point of living, dude? Like, this sucks. Obviously, he's helped millions of people, so take my experience with a grain of salt. Did a little bit of FP, but not much because I just wasn't experienced with it at that time. And then again, go ahead.
For those who are unaware, can you just share the full title of FP? I know what you're talking about. But...
Yeah. No, Functional Patterns, founded by Naudi Aguilar. Very vocal on social media, which I don't love because he's very negative towards everyone else. And I don't think it's like the best practice to try to make yourself look good by making everyone else worse. Like, I don't know. He's just very aggressive, but I get it. He 100% believes in his practice and he has helped so many people. Like it is what it is. You can definitely learn from Functional Patterns. If you're in any kind of pain, they got answers. So I followed that stuff. I did a lot of stuff from David Weck, like the rope flow stuff. That all came from him. Like that stuff works. That stuff's great. But I was still in pain. But again, when the straws were being pulled and it's like, all right, I'm going to get into jiu-jitsu, I just went for it. And at jiu-jitsu, as dumb as this sounds, every time I said, like, I'm going to go train jiu-jitsu, back pain does not exist. Back pain does not exist inside this school. So don't ever get up like, oh, like my back. Don't ever say, oh, sorry, I can't go hard this round, or I have to go slow because of my back. None of my training partners knew that I had back pain till the end of my first competition when I finally admitted to them like how important this day was, because I'm like, I won. Like I beat you, back pain. You are no longer an issue. But what happened though was really cool, is because my back, again, it dictated everything. So like when I'd brush my teeth, I'd have to like really brace myself and like hold myself up, because I couldn't just bend over, because it would basically shut off. I couldn't flush the toilet without like putting my hand on a wall, because if I just bent down to flush the toilet, my back would give out. All these things just terrible, because my back was so protective of itself. I couldn't move in any weird planes of any kind. So when I got into jiu-jitsu, well, as we all know, you are forced to be put in the most awkward positions you've ever been in, right? Like even just holding someone in guard, if they stand up, like, well, shit, get ready, because like you're going to have weight put on you, right? And so like, and by the way, like I'm never going to ever, I have the legs for it, but I'm never going to triangle anybody, because if you just put a little bit of weight on me, I'm out. Like that kills my back still, no matter what. But those movements now, like they unlocked so much of my body that I was able to move freely without pain. I'm going to forget his name, but he talked about how your fascia can dry up and get hard. But as soon as you start moving it again, it starts to liquefy and actually get hydration to the area. Well, that's what started happening. I started actually reversing this crystallized fascia in my lower back. As crazy as that sounds, came from jiu-jitsu. So literally almost 2 decades of back pain was erased in a couple months of jiu-jitsu. The most amazing thing ever, especially when you consider that like every athlete that they like surveyed all admitted that jiu-jitsu gave them back pain. I'm on the other end where it actually reversed the back pain. And I will never recommend, like I can't recommend it. If you have back pain, I can't sit here and say like it's going to work for you. But what I will say is it 100% worked for me. And if you take your time and you allow your body to be put in these awkward positions that it otherwise would never be in, because you're thinking too much. Like if I have to bend down, pick up my phone off, a table or something, I have to think about it. I have to be like, oof, I don't know if, like I have to brace myself on something. Whereas if we're doing a drill in jiu-jitsu where like we're just doing like light passing drills where I'm going to put my hand on his hip and then throw his knee through and then get in side control, you just do it. But then if you stop and think, you're like, oh, wait a second, I just did the exact same movement that killed me the other day. Like, why is that? It's like because your brain's completely like taken out of the equation. And so again, doing all these movements gave me confidence. It showed my brain and my body like, hey, bro, you're not broken. And then you like submit a couple people and all of a sudden you're like, all right, this is actually pretty cool. And so that's essentially what happened. And I didn't mean to drag that on too long, but it was just a huge turning moment in my life where my back pain no longer controlled my life.
I love that. That's one of my favorite stories that I've heard you share before, specifically for the mindset shift that happened where you had something that was really important to you, something that you were really fired up about. And you're like, you know what, this label that I've carried for years of back pain stops me from doing this. I'm saying like, you know what, forget that, forget all that noise. Like I'm going to jiu-jitsu anyways. There is a fine line with that because I said that too until like I got nerve damage in both my arms and I was like, oh, maybe I should like pay attention to my neck a little more. So we are not saying that you should just throw all caution to the wind, but I do think that for some people who haven't started jiu-jitsu yet and they have a label on themselves, I haven't started jiu-jitsu because I can't do X, Y, and Z, whatever that is. I would encourage anyone listening to this to really hear what Andrew said in his story, that label doesn't mean that you can't do jiu-jitsu. That label doesn't mean that there isn't some way you can do something on the mat. That may not mean that you need to jump right into competition classes. That may not mean that you need to train 6 days a week. And as much as I just like love talking crap about, static drilling and how pointless it is, the one benefit that I do see static drilling providing is that it is a very gradual progression of getting your body into those positions without having to fight it. Just like to what you said about what Kessler Warnick had shared with you, like stop fighting it. And if you're tensed up constantly all the time, trying to fight the resistance of the person you're rolling with, you're not really allowing your body to get into these different positions until that force just gets overpowered by a greater force. But doing things like some lower intensity drilling, of course, doing all the other stuff off the mat, your mobility work, your McGill Big Three, your rope flow, like all that stuff is super important. But I just love that story specifically because of how you took the label that you had and carried for so many years about your back pain not allowing you to do something, just throwing it out the window, and then over the course of a year, being able to basically rewrite a new label that I don't have back pain that holds me back from this anymore, and this is something that I can do. So thanks for sharing that story.
Yeah, for sure. And then on top of that, like, again, I'm so grateful for everyone at Waza, but like, if I was feeling a little banged up, I could, when everyone is like doing like open mat, I can get with somebody and be like, hey man, like, is it cool if we just run a couple drills? Like, is it cool if, I've been out for a little bit or whatever, like, hey, I just need you to make me work, like go to an upper belt and say like, hey man, like, if you get me in a good spot, just like let me fight out of it, and then like we can start over, whatever the case, like let's just focus on that. And so again, like when you open yourself up and let people know, like, hey, like I am a little jacked up, or like, is it cool if we just work on this? Like that's when it really the tension comes down, because like now like, hey, I'm not going to try to win. You're not going to try to win. You're just going to try to beat me up in a different way. That's when it can also get a lot of fun.
100%. 100%. Well, as we're kind of coming down to the end of the podcast, or closer to the end of the podcast, I had some rapid fire questions for you. Not necessarily that they have to be rapid fire answers. These questions were submitted from our boy, Zach Farr. Zach Farr is, he's our CGI travel buddy 2 years in a row. Also awesome member from the Strength Matrix community. So check out the Strength Matrix if you're trying to enhance your grappling athleticism. Zach had a bunch of awesome questions that I think a lot of other white belts might be asking, or if they're a little too afraid to ask, they're definitely thinking about them. And so first question from Zach is, how does one practice staying calm when getting beat up?
Ooh, yeah. This goes back to what Nicholas Meregali was teaching his class. So I spent a week in Austin, and I took the entire week at that Gracie school exclusively just to learn from Nicholas Meregali. And it was the coolest thing ever. He gave us the drill. I forgot what it was. We got with our partner, and then he just stops everyone. He's just like, hey, like he just gets everyone's attention. He's like, there's too many of you that are breathing with your mouth. If you are breathing through your mouth, you are going too hard, and you are doing the exercise wrong. You're doing the technique wrong. Close your mouth and go as slow as necessary in order to continue breathing through your nose. And so I was already practicing that. But when I heard a freaking future Hall of Famer, I'm like, okay, this is really cool. And so that got me really fired up. And it's something that I have taken with me. So one way that I I utilize to stay calm is I literally, like, if somebody saw me rolling, they'd be like, dude, he looks bored. Because if I have the face of like, this is nothing, this is boring, then the rest of my body is like, all right, we're chill. At times where I do feel a little anxious, like whether it's like, all right, here we go. Like we're going to test ourselves against, our training partners. If I'm in a bad spot, I literally smile as big as possible, because all that anxiety goes away, because now all of a sudden I have a smile on my face. It's a little tiny trick that I use that works for me, that just somehow controls the rest of my body and my emotions. Because I did go through a phase where like if I got stuck under somebody, I would get that like claustrophobic feeling. And I just started smiling one day and it worked. So that's how I control it.
That is so interesting. We've talked a ton about nasal breathing, just conversations between you and I've also talked about it a ton on the podcast. But the smiling thing is so fascinating because Zach, him and I have been friends for years. We entered a CrossFit competition way back in the day. And I won't get into the full story behind that, but I guess I will share it.
Champion, bro.
Yeah, I guess I will share the story. So this is in high school, like peak of CrossFit. Like I had Rich Froning t-shirts, a signed Rich Froning poster. Like I was 100% drinking the CrossFit Kool-Aid. And Zach and I, we were doing CrossFit together. And so we get word that there was this CrossFit competition, the fittest of Roseville. And I'm thinking like, hell yeah, I'm freaking geeked for this competition. So Zach and I sign up. I trained all summer. I'm like, I'd, work my shift at the sandwich place. And then on my 30-minute lunch break, I'd watch like just Rich Froning highlights the whole time. And so I was so fired up for this competition. Zach and I show up and we're the only two people who signed up in our division. And so it was not that it was a letdown, like it was still fun, but just to be like, I'm training to be the fittest in Roseville. And then to show up and just have it just be us was pretty funny. But I referenced that because the coach that was training us, we trained at the same gym. He had told us, he said, when you start to feel fatigued in these events at this CrossFit competitions, smile. And at the time I was thinking like smiling, like, what is this a joke to you? I thought of it of like, Denzel Washington in, Remember the Titans. He's like, are you smiling? Why are you smiling? Cause football's fun. He's like, football's fun. And so I thought that was like a gimmick. I didn't think that was actually legit, but now fast forward probably 10, 15 years later to hear you talking about how that has actually helped you not, be like suffocated both physically and mentally by the anxiety of the pressure of rolling. I think that's fantastic. So thank you for sharing that anecdote.
Yeah, it definitely helps with like you get your blue belt and all of a sudden now this white belt's coming after you. You're like, oh, here we go. Like you kind of just like almost laugh it off and it's like, all right, it's not a big deal after all.
For sure. Another question that Zach submitted, which I think is something that I definitely wish I was thinking about before I started jiu-jitsu, was how do you know when to tap?
Ooh, man. Thankfully, I had a lot of good guidance from someone like you, which is just like tap early, tap often. This goes back to a lot of like what I said with like the ego and that sort of thing. Like just like leave it at home and then go to jiu-jitsu. Don't fight back. I'm sorry, but you're not going to impress somebody and all of a sudden be your school's like hidden gem where like everyone gets like, it's just not going to happen. So like, yeah, dude, just learn from it and be able to like, all right, tap and then get up and do it again. Right. Like what I did early on to try to be impressive was tap early, get up and then get going again to like, hey, I can't beat you in jiu-jitsu, but maybe I can outwork you with my cardio. Right. Which again, like worked sometimes and other times completely backfired. But I did that to be like, hey, man, like I'm not the best at jiu-jitsu, but I'm going to be a really good training partner because you are going to get a lot of shooting practice right now. And then so we just kind of keep doing that. So, yeah, man, just tap early, tap often. Like there's no point.
100%. I think the tap early, tap often thing is super important. And I think it's also good to define like tapping early is when like there's no routes of escape. Like tapping early doesn't mean, okay, when my arm's extended and I first feel pain, that's technically way too late. Like you should have tapped way earlier than that. And I forget who I heard it from, but they had said like, if any of your limbs are away from your body and you can't get them back, like it's pretty safe to tap. Like you don't need to wait for your elbow to get fully extended. You don't need to wait for your heel to be pointed towards the sky on a heel hook to tap. Like if you can't move out of there, like you're done. And so I think I'm in 100% agreement with that. Tap early, tap often.
And I'm always like, super grateful too. Like if we're rolling and like you as an upper belt, you obviously have my arm, you know, it's just a matter of time before I tap. Every time somebody has me and I kind of like go limp and I tap and they don't put it on, like they don't go for it, I always get up, hey man, thank you so much for not breaking my arm. And then we just go again. And they're always like, oh, I don't think much of it. But I'm always so grateful for good training partners. I try to let them know like, hey man, you're awesome for not breaking my arm. I'm down to train with you whenever.
100%.
Yeah.
How can I work anything if everyone is better than me and holds me down?
Oh man. You have to ask. Like you literally, there's no other path. Like Josh, like if you and I trained or we did any of the like the games and stuff, like you would smoke me pretty like easily on whatever it is. I would then have to say, hey dude, like I can't get out of side control. We just start there? And then when you realize like, oh dude, you suck at this, like, hey, how about you try this? And then maybe we try that. Or the flip side, like, dude, I cannot hold anyone down in side control. Josh, you get out every single time. Can we just start there? And then when you get on top or you get to a certain position, let's time out and let's start again in that position. I can't imagine anybody outside of training for a competition that would say no to that. If you are an upper belt and you're asking a lower belt, they're going to do it. If you're a lower belt asking an upper belt, they're going to be like, this is cool. I like that he's actually trying something new, or he's trying to learn. He's trying to get better, not just trying to win, right? Dude, yeah, I do that to this day. Like there's just times where like you can't do anything. Like, it's like me training with Mark Bell. Like, hey, let's go do deadlifts together. Is he going to be like, well, if you can't start at 315, then like we can't hang out? No, he's going to move the weights down. That's what your training partners are supposed to do if they're, worth a damn. So yeah, you just simply ask like, hey dude, like I'm not getting this. Can we focus on this one step of this 10-step process or whatever? I know you guys don't like steps, but you know what I mean? Like, can we focus on takedowns? My single leg sucks. Can we just get the setup first? Like, and then go from there? Sure. Absolutely.
I love that. I think some of the best ways, not just a white belt, but anyone can make progress in any area of life is just to ask better questions. And I think if someone who's just starting jiu-jitsu in 2026 is starting the process with the mindset of, okay, when I get stuck, how can I ask a better question about this? How can I try to just like get one nugget of information or one tip or one piece of advice that may not fix the entire thing? Like it's going to be pretty hard as a white belt that's been training for less than a year. It's going to be pretty hard to figure out like, this is the ultimate side control escape. No one can hold me down. But maybe there's like one nugget that just by asking a really good question you can get about how to set your frames or how to, kind of find the gamemanship of not spazzing out and getting tired and stuff like that. So I love that, asking good questions. Is there a right way, speaking of asking questions, is there a right way to ask someone for help or show you a move?
I mean, maybe. I don't know. I guess you could be like what they call like the ask hole, right? Like, like if I asked you like, hey man, like, when I go for this single leg X, like sweep or whatever, like it's not working. And you're like, oh, it's because you're not like hugging my leg tight enough and twisting and then going, that direction. And then I come back to you and I'm like, hey man, like it's still not working. And they're all right, let me see what you got. And you're like, well, you're not doing the thing I told you. Like, this is what I meant. And like, and you keep asking the same question, but not doing the thing that, that you were taught or that you were showed. In most cases, maybe not so much in jiu-jitsu, but like in life, it's not a lack of knowledge. Everything is lack of execution. So don't be the person that's continually asking questions, but not actually going and doing something about it, right? If you raise your hand while professor's like instructing something, but then you don't actually like implement that stuff, that's the only way you're going to be able to ask a bad question is by just continually asking but not executing.
I love it. I think that's a great point. Focusing on the execution, maybe the ratio of asking to execution is like 1 to 10. Execute 10 times on something and then ask a question, or ask one question and then execute it on it 10 times. I remember there was one time I was training, and I think I was a white belt, maybe a blue belt. And back then I asked tons of questions, and I tried to make sure I asked good questions. But there was one time in particular, I was rolling with Tyler Bray, who we both know, and he's an absolute menace. He's in a wheelchair. I forget his official condition, but he's in a wheelchair. He's a Olympia level pro bodybuilder, and he's a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu black belt. So just an all around badass, absolute menace. And we were rolling right in front of Cassio, and he submitted me. And before like I could even get the words out of my mouth, like I tap and I look at Cassio, and he looks at me. He's like, "There's nothing you could have done. Don't ask." Like, yeah, nothing. And I was like, "All right, good.
Brutal.
Thanks, coach."
Yeah.
So ask good questions, execute on them a lot more. I think that's fantastic advice.
Yeah.
This is a really interesting one. Once I gain control, how do I maintain my position?
Man, I'm gonna have to defer that one to you. I guess again, kind of like what I would do whenever I got into an advantageous position. I would think about like what he's thinking about, and maybe that's already thinking a little bit too much. Because in most cases, what would happen to me is I would rush everything. Like, oh, I'm finally inside control. Let me go for this paper cutter, and like all these things. Like, I'm like, go, 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 go. Instead of like, let me see how he reacts. Like maybe he's gonna spaz out and try to get out of side control and do nothing with it, and now he's a little bit more tired. Like, oh, okay, now I have even more control over my partner, right? So I think, like, again, kind of coming back to that theme of like, let me see if I can slow down. Obviously, you want to execute, but like at the same time, you don't have to like sprint through everything. You worked hard, you got into that good position. Now don't waste it. Don't just sit on it, but also like you're in position right now. You don't have to rush to the next thing. I don't remember who talked about this, because I got this advice like from someone else by someone else, right? So someone said it and then I heard it from someone else. But it was basically like you sort of like get to a certain base. So like, okay, we're starting. Okay, now let me get to the base, meaning can I get to a position where I'm safe and he's not going to be able to advance, but I don't have to like worry about anything? Okay, now let's go, 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 go. Okay, I got to the next base and now I'm safe. And so you kind of just get to these positions where you are comfortable and in control, and then you move, right? So it's not like, let me hit a home run and just go for it right now. It's like you can get to these positions where you have the advantage. You don't have to worry about rushing through it. And that's always been my thing, is like, the second I'm in a good position, I'm like, oh, I'm doing it. And then that window is just like completely shuts because I just rushed or whatever happens. Like I end up messing up before they do.
Right, right. I think the saying slow is smooth and smooth is fast is perfect for getting into a certain position. I remember this was when I was a purple belt. I felt like my guard passing was getting a lot better. I felt like side control was really strong, but for whatever reason, well, I know the reason, but at the time I just thought like for some unknown reason, I'm terrible in mount. Like I would much rather, if like there was a scramble and I landed in mount, I would give up mount and go to side control because I felt like I was just going to get rolled over in mount. And that's when I first started kind of looking into ecological dynamics and the constraint-based games. And just by simply getting more time in mount, which is not a fun thing to suggest to your training partner, like, hey, I'm going to start in mount this whole round. Do you want to train with me? So there is like, you do have to be aware of the fact, like some people might say like, nah, I'm not doing that. There's actually one time I was telling Zach about this. I was training with this guy, and he was a really good wrestler. And I suggested, hey, do you mind if we do some positional stuff? And like wrestlers are very familiar with like doing situational live goes. And he was like, okay. And I said, I'm going to start in mount. And like, I didn't feel bad for the guy. He agreed to it. And so the rounds we were doing is the 6 minute round. And so like for the first 3 minutes, I'm just cooking him left and right. And about halfway, he's like, yeah, let's just roll. I'm kind of bored of this. And I was like, hey, that's fair. Like, I get it. I understand. But I think to circle back to the original point, as a white belt, I think there's a lot of value to be had in just getting more exposure to some of those positions. And as a white belt, you're really not going to get to a whole lot of dominant positions against anyone good very often. So sometimes you just have to ask and just say like, hey, I really want to get better at this particular position of side control, of mount on the back. Because every time I get there, on the rare occasion that I do get there, I don't know what to do. So is it okay if we spend this round where I start in mount or I start on your back or whatever the case may be? And most people, I would say, are probably going to be pretty cool with that. Again, if someone's a competitor, you do got to respect that. They might not be as inclined to agree to that, but you can always ask.
Yeah, in that situation, if you know they're competing, there's a really good chance that you'll, hear it through the grapevine. You ask them like, hey man, like I'm a white belt or I'm, a blue belt, you're an upper belt. Like I'm not going to really be able to give you any good looks, but is there something that I can help you with as you prep for this tournament? That goes so far, because then they'll be like, actually, can we do this or whatever. Like there's always something that they're working on. And if you can be that person that helps them out, they won't forget that the next time you ask for help.
I love that. Fantastic advice. Here's another question. How do I not gas out super fast?
Well, you sign up for the Strength Matrix and figure out how to not die on the fan bike. Josh actually took me through, this was like 2 summers ago, I think, through a really good session on the Echo bike, but I use an assault bike these days. And that did help me, right? That did leave me with like a lot of stuff to build upon. But I think it goes back to like just controlling the breath and being able to regulate your output more so than like being the most cardio crazy nut on the planet on an assault bike. It just goes back to like, hey, can you control your breath? Can you calm down? I guess that would be it for me, man. Like I don't really know all the answers for that one, but what I would say is like more mat time is going to help. But also regulating your output is going to help a lot as well. If possible, do as much nasal breathing as you can. So that way you're not starting the round breathing like you're going 100 miles per hour, because when you do go 100 miles per hour, you got nowhere else to go. So trying to like control that breath when you can is going to be very helpful. With that said, after a few seconds, my mouth is open and I can't nasal breathe. So don't make the mistake I did, which was like nasal breathing all the time. And I'm like turning blue and passing out. Like, don't do that either. Like, just again, find your bases, catch your breath, calm down. Do the double in, slow out. So the double in through the nasal, out slowly through the mouth. It's like, because that's going to, one, get the oxygen in there. It's going to blow out what's it called? The oxygen that's already used. Sorry, I'm not a scientist here. But it's going to calm everything down while giving you fresh oxygen inside your body.
I'm in 100% agreement with that it starts with the breathing. I'm a freaking giant Karate Kid fan, and in Karate Kid 3, Terry Silver has his Quicksilver fighting system, and he says if a man can't breathe, he can't fight, which is so true. If you're breathing inefficiently, you're not going to be able to fight very well. You're not going to be able to roll very hard for very long. And to give a practical example, you and I went to Master Worlds earlier this year. We watched some of the athletes I was coaching compete and some of our teammates that we train with. And while we were at Master Worlds, someone had reached out to me and said, like, man, like I literally just lost in the quarterfinals because I gassed out. I was undefeated this entire year, #1 seed, gassed out in the quarterfinals, and I lost. Like, I'm sick of gassing out. I need to fix it. What do I do? I talked with him, did some consult calls with him, and on paper, his conditioning was pretty good. He did some like ultra marathons. He like did some stuff that you would think like, yeah, this guy's kind of like a cardio machine, but why is it that he's still not able to have it show up on the mat. The thing we found was there were some issues with his breathing, and that was the first thing that we addressed. And within 8 weeks, we did some breathing protocols. We did some specific conditioning stuff, some specific work capacity things, a couple things with energy system development, but it was all built on the foundation of fixing his breathing first. Fast forward from Master Worlds, 8 weeks later, he competes at Nogi Worlds. He wins the whole bracket, smashes 2 world champs, a European champ, and ends up getting a Nogi title, which is freaking awesome. So
that's incredible. And correct me if I'm wrong, but in my head, gi, you can kind of slow things down and catch your breath, but in Nogi, it's like nonstop, right? I would say it's like way more cardio intensive, right?
Right, yeah. In a lot of ways it is. Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but you're right.
Yeah, that's why I like the gi, dude, because you guys are slippery.
I hear you there. Yeah, the gi, it is interesting with the gi because in one way, it's, at least for me, it's so difficult because anyone can just grab anything. Like you can literally grab the middle of someone's back and they can't go anywhere. Versus in no gi, there's nothing to hold on to. So it does introduce some interesting complexities. One last question from Zach, which I think is probably one of the best questions I've ever heard, is who should I be rolling against when I'm brand new?
Ooh, man. I like how Cassio does it, where he doesn't allow other white belts to roll with other white belts. Not every school is going to have that as a hard rule. But I learned so much when I went to Cassio's because of that. Because, when I first started in the morning classes at Waza, which is not the case now, which is a huge testament to this school. But when I first started, it was like 50% white belt. So you're going to roll with another white belt. So it was tough. But if possible, roll with an upper belt every time. Don't fight back. Ask a lot of questions in the roll. As you get tapped, like, hey, man, can we freeze right here? Like, whether it's an arm, whatever it is, right? Like, hey, can we pause real quick? What did I do wrong to get into this position? And they might give you a good answer. They might just be like, dude, you just like, don't put your hand out. Like, okay, that's something, right? That's better than nothing. In other cases, like, you're going to kind of, I don't want to say click up, but like, you're going to find the people that like you, for lack of better terms, like you just like kind of have more fun with, like you maybe tell stupid jokes and you're giggling during the round when you should be paying attention, like things like that, where it's like you can be open and honest with that partner and be like, hey, dude, like my ankle's jacked up right now. Like, let's kind of like avoid ankle locks or something. You know what I mean? Like people, you'll find who you trust, especially those. And this is something that I sort of picked up on early is, if somebody genuinely knows how to flow roll, that's a good training partner. What I mean is the instructor will be like, all right, guys, let's get some flow rolls in, and then, fist bump or whatever. And if I'm getting like, like a collar drag and my head's getting whipped back, like, hey, bro, we're flowing right now, but okay, sure. You can be the flow roll world champion if you want. Go ahead, buddy. Like, I'm not going to fight you because like, this is stupid. And sure, you can call me what you want, but like, we're supposed to be flowing right now. I'm barely getting warmed up. Like, chill out. If somebody knows how to flow, then I'm like, that's my next training partner, because I know if we get into a situation where we both need to learn something, he's going to slow down and actually be able to walk through it and like learn the thing. So as a weird like qualifier, if they know how to flow roll, there's a really good chance that you can trust that person to train with.
I love that. I think that's fantastic. I didn't think necessarily about the flow rolling aspect, but now that you say that, I think that coincides with what I was originally thinking, which was try to find the oldest upper belt you can. That guy probably knows how to flow roll really well. He probably just naturally takes things a little bit slower. I think a big mistake, and you had mentioned this earlier, a big mistake that a lot of new people make is that they're kind of nervous about being new, so they just work with the other people who are new. And it's kind of like you're at your greatest risk of being injured when you're a white belt rolling with another white belt. A lot of people think like, I don't want to roll with the black belt. Like he's going to like destroy me. And it's like, yeah, he is a lot better at jiu-jitsu than you. So on a technical level, yes, he is going to destroy you, but he's not going to hurt you. At least any good black belt would not hurt a brand new training partner. They're probably the safest person you can roll with. And I think when you look at some of the upper belts that are much older, they're relying so much less on just going super, super hard and are a little bit more invested into the longevity of just being able to stay on the mat and keep training. And those would be great people that you can learn from. Those would be great people that you can kind of like slow the tempo down with, so that way you can get some good advice on how to adjust your guard passing or your escapes or whatever the case may be. The other thing that I would say too is keep a mental inventory of, for lack of a better term, and not to, I don't say this as like to put people on a blacklist or anything, but keep a mental inventory of the people that roll super spazzy, super hard, and that people start to get injured rolling with. Like there's people over the years that I've seen, like I've rolled with them a couple times and they do some crazy stuff to the point where now it's just like, even if there's perfectly even numbers and both of us have to sit out, I'll sometimes still say like, nah, I think I'm all right. I think I'll just pass on this one because I've seen how you roll, bro, and I'm not risking it. So it's, no one has to say yes to a roll. Everyone has the right and within their freedom to say like, nah, man, I'm not rolling this round with you specifically.
Yeah. I don't know if this is the best approach and you can like straight up tell me yay or nay, but like whenever like, damn that guy. All right. What's up, bro? And you have to roll with that guy, and like I will sometimes be like, "That's all right, guys. I'll jump on this grenade," and like thankfully nobody really gets upset. But when I roll with that person, I will almost kill them with kindness in a way of like, oh my gosh, dude, like you're gonna go for the crazy thing, so like I'm literally not gonna try anything, like period. Like I almost might not even try defense, to the point where it frustrates them. To then the next time it like literally slowed them down because they're like, oh, this is the guy that goes a little bit too slow. And I'm not saying like I can't turn it up. Like in a class of I don't know how many people, like I'm one of the few that has competed. So like I'm down to get down, but at the same time, like this is training. Like you guys are my training partners. We're all in a school together. You're my brothers and sisters. Like I literally don't want to fight you, but like we're trying to get better. But when there is somebody that's like, oh, time to take names and choke people out, like, okay, calm down. But also like when I do have to roll with you, like just know I'm going to go even easier than normal. Like, I don't know if that's the best approach, but it seems to sort of like dilute the excitement from them to where they're like, oh shoot, I have to go slow.
That's really interesting. I've never thought of it that way, but I think you're right. I think that could definitely work. I think when I was a white belt, because I came from wrestling, that wasn't my first instinct of like, hey, I should like go extra slow. I tried to like meet force with force, and then that obviously didn't work out fantastic for me. But I really like that.
Yeah, it definitely takes somebody with literally like negative ego because it's like really hard. But when I think me and Mason were talking about this. Mason Fowler might have been on air, but he was like, yeah, if I roll with somebody and I don't like them, I just be like, oh, no, thanks. And if they call me out again, because he's who he is, he's like, I literally just smash the shit out of them to where they don't ever ask me again. And I'm like, okay, that's a cool approach. I can't do that, but that's awesome.
If you're like a multiple time world champ, then I guess that works. But for the rest of us, we'll just, not do anything.
Current, what is it? Light heavy UFC BJJ champ. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know when he'll be on the pod, but I'm putting it out there. Mason Fowler, I'm trying to get you on the podcast at some point.
We'll make it happen for sure. Yeah.
Well, Andrew, this has been just an absolutely amazing conversation. I feel so blessed to know you, feel so blessed to be working with you in so many different contexts over the last several years. We work together at Pursue Podcasting, your company, which is freaking awesome, and I'm honored to be a part of it. Before we jump off, you mentioned a little bit earlier that a lot of the amazing experiences you had as a white belt came from the power of podcasting. So can you briefly share a little bit more about the power of podcasting, kind of what you're up to, and then any exciting projects you have in the books?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for asking. And thank you for being a part of Pursue Podcasting. We definitely wouldn't be what we are without you. So I really appreciate it, bro. But yeah, man, the world is so small right now. I've got to train with the best of the best in jiu-jitsu by way of podcasting, whether they were a guest or friends of guests, or just, again, getting in these rooms with people that I, for lack of better terms, just didn't really have any business being in, all because of what I've been able to accomplish through podcasting. And, you know, we were able to build something huge with the Power Project. And, you know, I basically wanted to stop being selfish and start sharing a lot of what went on behind all of that to help other people. And so at the start of 2020, what are we in? 2025, I started opening up the doors to like consulting and that sort of thing. But that quickly led to just me running other shows. And so instead of like going vertical with one show, I decided to just help others get tons of wins. And so like fast forward to this year, something that we decided to open up was not necessarily just doing everything for a business owner. Again, like mostly in the fitness realm, but I definitely work with anybody in like any business, period. But obviously, a lot of the people that I connect with the most, know how to help the most, is in the fitness, like health and fitness realm. And so what we decided to do was kind of open up a program where, like, if you're not somebody that's ready to go all in for us to take over the entire production, meaning you hit record, we take care of the rest. Maybe you already have a media team, or maybe you are more like on the other end where you're like, don't have that money to invest in a full media team. I want to be a part of it, but I'm still a little stuck. Well, now we can meet you where you are and actually like meet up at least twice a week to where I can coach you through a lot of the stuff that you get stuck on. Because what I'm noticing is, again, kind of going back to what I said earlier, there's really not a lack of education and knowledge out there. You can YouTube whatever you need on YouTube. Like, you can search for it, you'll find the answers, but why are you not executing, right? Like, how come we're not all billionaires? All the information's out there. Alex Hormozy puts it out for us, right? Like, it's all there, but you need somebody to kind of like guide you along the way. And when you do run into those hurdles, sometimes you don't know exactly which play to run. As somebody that's ran many plays, ran through many hurdles, lots of wins and losses, I know how to get through pretty much all of them. And so that's where we kind of decided, like, hey, let's open up an actual coaching program for people in the fitness industry to get their authority and get their name up, like all these things, to where, like, you know, like for yourself, like, we're podcasting, but like this is going to lead to so many other things. Okay, maybe we can do this for more people. And so we've decided to open up a Fitness Authority Academy where we meet up twice a week. If you don't have a podcast, we can launch it for you. But also, if you have a podcast, like, well, I can just guide you and help you and figure out like exactly what's getting you stuck and how to get you unstuck. And it's super exciting. And at the time of this recording, it's not even available yet, but it will be very, very soon at pursuepodcasting.com. That's kind of where everything's going to live. And I'm just super fired up to just be able to help more people in this community, because there's a lot of people that have a lot of really, really good things to say. It's just not really put together in the right way. And I got into all of this, literally like content creation as a whole. I got into all this because I wanted to make an impact on this world. When I was working in the health and medical field, I was not making a difference. Once I started taking photos, once I started making YouTube videos, once I started podcasting, started changing people's lives. Well, now I have the opportunity to help you change people's lives, like you, Josh, but also like you listening and watching. Like, you're going to impact someone's life. And if I can help you do that better for more people, then I will have fulfilled my reason for being on this planet. And so that's why, like, yes, it's really cool to like do something cool, but that's really at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, is helping you impact this planet. And again, if I have one tiny little bit to do with that, then it was all worth it.
I love it. I love it. I think what you shared about if someone has a message, like they owe it to the people that they can serve to blast that message out there. And unfortunately, I know I've made this mistake. Like this is my third podcast. The first two failed because I paired hard work with guesswork. My first two shows or my first two podcasts over the last 6 years of podcasting were just like hard work and grinding and guesswork. And then once I linked up with you, this podcast is here literally because of you. You provided me with a framework that actually works in helping blast my message out there to help grapplers. So if you're listening to this and you have a message that you need to share with the world, you can't pair guesswork with hard work. You want to keep your hard work, but you got to pair that hard work with the framework. Pursue Podcasting got that framework for you. So Andrew, thank you so much. You mentioned pursuepodcasting.com. Is there anywhere else someone could reach out to if they have questions about how to get started?
Yeah, I'm most active on Instagram, so at I am Andrew Z. I do have TikTok, but like I don't know what I'm doing there, so I just post every once in a while. But yeah, mainly Instagram. That's going to be the place, and then of course, pursuepodcasting.com.
Fantastic. Lift heavy, roll hard. Catch y'all later. Peace.